I've used that particular analogy in almost 3 weeks. Well, like I'm alluding to with my clever word usage, it's just more of the same. Look, the purchasing power of whatever fiat money you create, it's not going to do anything to the dollar. It's just going to ruin the purchasing power of the people under whom you're supposed to be helping, not hurting with your fiat money. I mean, it'll be kind of a great news story that China and Russia are creating some new fiat money, but ultimately it's kind of like rearranging the fiat money deck chairs on the fiat money Titanic. Did I just say that? Middle name is Sphere. Because he wanted to have his name reflect the absolute antithesis to being square. So he named this Sphere. Anyway, talking about fiat money and influence, that sure, you're going to get some influence if you have this new Russia-China fiat money, but you haven't solved the basic problem of fiat money. So what Russia and China are looking at US dollar hegemony, and they think they understand what the problem is. They think, oh, you know, we need to get our own fiat money and that would solve all of our problems. No, you're just going to recreate the problems, but it's going to have different colored paper. It's just going to look different, but it's the same problem. I would also like to interject that coming out of Russia recently have been comments negative toward Bitcoin. So we know for a fact now that the situation there is hopeless. Right, so again, another prediction we can make here with almost 100% certainty is that inflation that's broken out here in the last 12 months will continue to build over the next decade, because now you've got Russia, China is going to try to compete by printing a lot of fiat money, which will put the basis for those commodities like oil and food up in fiat money terms. What the great news here is that this is how we get to Bitcoin $200,000, $300,000 a coin, as these two major powers try to fight each other by outprinting each other. So this is fantastic news for Bitcoin. It's terrible news if you don't have Bitcoin. But again, you know, people call some of us toxic Bitcoin maximalists for simply pointing this out. But look, folks, if you have these superpowers trying to print each other to death by fiat money issuance, and it drives Bitcoin to $500,000 or $1 million a coin, that's not being a toxic Bitcoin maximalist. That's just being real. You know, that's as real as a bebop phrase coming out of the fingers of Thelonious Monk in 1962. You can't not hear it once you hear it. It's the truth as Thelonious would pound it out on those keyboards. It's not any equivocation there. It's the bebop truth. And I'm speaking the bebop truth. And the bebop truth is this: you cannot print yourself to prosperity. And this is fantastic for Bitcoin. Did Bitcoin cause these nations to go insane? Yes, it did, because it's perfect and they're flawed. And that's what we're dealing with. And unless you understand those 88 ivories on that keyboard in the way that Thelonious Monk did, you're at a loss. Fortunately, with Bitcoin, you can get over the hump and simply achieve the Bitcoin singularity and touch that synchronicity oh so beautifully. I'm getting a message from Satoshi right now, Stacy, but I'll save that for later. How much time do we have left? Right, Jeff? Hey, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, much more coming your way. Welcome back to Max and Stacy Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to Caitlin Long. She's the founder and CEO of Custodia Bank. Caitlin, nice to see you again. Yes, we're always traveling. We're in El Salvador, home of the free, land of the Bitcoin. I wanted to talk to you specifically about some of the things we've been chatting about for several years now. You warned about it first: rehypothecation and leverage. Not your keys, not your coin. Tell us what happened in the so-called DeFi, and what do you think the consequence of the collapse will be? In other words, over the past few weeks, we've seen a lot of over-leveraged positions in so-called DeFi space collapse, but that's no surprise to you, is it, Caitlin? Right, so this came up because a few years ago, people were talking about Bitcoin and the markets and had seen what happened in the gold market. You know, the gold, since we've talked, Caitlin, it's come out now categorically and demonstrably and provably that banks like JP Morgan were doing exactly what we suspected they were doing. They were spoofing the markets. They were manipulating the price. They were using derivatives to control the price. And now that's no longer a conspiracy theory, but a fact. And the question at that time was, well, won't the same thing happen to Bitcoin? So what you're saying is that, yeah, it does happen to Bitcoin, but unlike gold, which where nobody stands for delivery of the physical gold, and those games never seem to end, with Bitcoin, you can simply pull your private keys, right? Right. This is a Caitlin Long victory lap show. Basically, everything we've been saying for years now is kind of coming to fruition. I like the meme from Jameson Lopp about the skier sitting on a chair. I came up with something myself where I'm so outside of any of this speculative nonsense. I feel like a virgin, like a virgin.
Yeah. So true. Yeah.
It's back to 2011 before there were any of this available. So that's why I came up with that. So now your bank, Custodia Bank, last we spoke, the idea was it's a fully collateralized bank, right? That's kind of the idea. And when Michael Saylor just recently got a Bitcoin collateralized loan out there, I guess with another bank in this industry, that seems to be a growing business. Would that be a business that you guys would be into as well? All right, well, I want to change gears here for a second. So another theme we've talked about over the years is kind of this global hash race. Now, El Salvador has made Bitcoin legal tender, and it's had immediate impact on the country, and a lot of great things are happening here. Of course, Wyoming is becoming, last we talked, something of a center of Bitcoin in the United States. So can you tell me now where that stands? Is Wyoming, and by extension the United States, moving toward a Bitcoinization or a Bitcoin standard, or is it going sideways? I saw that I believe the Cynthia Lummis bill in Washington has been kicked down the road a few months. So what's the current state? Yeah, as you mentioned, we both kind of come out of the securities industry, and I was often, bemused, I guess you could say, when a lot of people in the crypto business were telling me that the Howey test, which is used to determine if something is in fact a security, was outdated, it needed to be revised, the SEC is wrong. Everyone seemed like they're ready to do battle with the SEC, which seemed like a terrible position to take, because the SEC, unless all those regulations change, they're going to come down hard and they're going to use the Howey test, Caitlin. Right. Well, that's a good topic to pick up on another time, because it's a pretty long and voluminous thing to dig into. We'll have to pick your brain accordingly. But for now, Caitlin Long, thanks so much for being on Max and Stacy Report.
Good to see you guys.
All right, and that's going to do it for this edition of Max and Stacy Report with Max Keiser and Stacy Herbert. Until next time, bye, y'all.